Every Tuesday, she called it a medical necessity. The cream-colored appointment card I found tucked behind the owner's manual in the glove box, however, suggested a much different diagnosis. For 11 long months, I lived a life of clockwork, predictability. I drove the same I-88 corridor, stopped for a midday Cobb salad at that same diner in Naperville, and managed a team of 31 insurance adjusters without ever raising my voice. My wife, Lydia, had a recurring Tuesday afternoon appointment, and for reasons I still struggle to process, I never questioned it. Not once. I've spent countless hours in the quiet of my living room trying to figure out if that makes me a man of profound, unshakable trust, or simply a man who had stopped looking at his own life. Welcome back to Eric's Revenge Stories. Grab your snacks, settle into your favorite chair, and remember, the people in these stories had every opportunity to do the right thing. They just chose otherwise. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. I read every one of them. You're going to love it here. My name is Stuart Calloway. I'm 54 years old. For the last 16 years, I've been the branch manager for a major insurance firm here in the Chicago suburbs. I manage claims, I manage high-stress personalities, and until recently, I thought I was managing a pretty decent marriage. 2 of those 3 things turned out to be rock solid. I'll let you decide which ones. My hair started turning a distinguished gray back when I was 47, and my cardiologist tells me my blood pressure is perfect for a man my age. I consider that a personal triumph, especially given the circumstances I'm about to lay out. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from. I genuinely want to know. I always picture someone in a kitchen somewhere in the Midwest, waiting for the coffee to drip, and I find that image oddly comforting. Life in our neighborhood was ordinary in the best possible way. I pulled out of the garage at 7:30 every morning and returned by 6:15. Lydia, my wife of 19 years, worked part-time as a front office coordinator at a high-end dental practice on Washington Street. She was the picture of American suburban perfection, organized, punctual, and possessed of strong opinions on everything from the proper shade of kitchen backsplash to how a dishwasher should be loaded for maximum efficiency. We had a beautiful colonial-style house with a sprawling lawn. We had dinner together most nights. We had what I would have defined as a solid, unshakable life. Lydia was 49, sharp, well-dressed, the kind of woman who kept a digital calendar for our 40-person social circle and still had enough mental energy to judge the neighbors' landscaping choices. Then came the Tuesday appointments, starting about 11 months before the walls came down. A recurring checkup, she said. Something about a minor chronic issue that her doctor wanted to keep an eye on. She was vague about it in the way people are when they're hiding a bruise or a secret, and I respected her privacy. I come from a generation of men who were taught not to grill their wives about doctor visits. I consider that a character flaw. I have since corrected. The first thing I noticed was her demeanor on Tuesday evenings. She didn't just come home, she returned in a state of elevated, buoyant energy. Not a normal, had a good day mood, but something lighter, a little distant, as if she were carrying a secret tune in her head. I told myself it made sense. Managing a health concern can be a weight, and resolving it surely lifts the spirit. I believed that because I wanted to. I clung to it. Then came March. My own car was in the shop for a transmission fluid flush, so I borrowed the family SUV to get to a morning meeting. I needed the registration from the glove box. I opened it, and there it was, the card. Cream-colored, elegant, with an address on a street in a neighboring town printed neatly at the bottom. No clinic, no doctor's name, no office hours. Just an address and a time, 1 p.m. I knew this area like the back of my hand. I'd lived in the Chicago suburbs for 26 years. I knew every medical plaza, every urgent care, every specialist suite within a 30-mile radius. That address was not a medical facility. I sat in the driveway for a long time, the engine humming quietly. Then I pulled up the address on my phone. A luxury apartment building, mid-rise, built a few years back. I still have the screenshot of the Zillow listing. I want to tell you I went inside, had a rational conversation, and moved on. I didn't. I drove to that address. I parked across the street in the lot of a home improvement store and sat there with the engine off, watching my coffee go cold in the cup holder. I spent 20 minutes inventing reasonable explanations: a secret book club, a quiet place to work on a private project, a friend in need of help. That's what people who trust their partners do. We invent stories to keep the world from ending. 22 minutes later, Lydia walked out of that building. She wasn't alone. The man beside her was tall, maybe 50, wearing an expensive tailored jacket I'd never seen before. They paused on the sidewalk. He said something, and she laughed. A real, vibrant laugh, the kind she hadn't given me in years. He touched her arm, just above the elbow, and she didn't pull away. In 4 seconds, the 19 years of my life I thought I knew turned to ash. I drove home. I didn't call her. I didn't wait for her. I called my best friend, Dennis Holt. Dennis and I have been tight since our late 20s. We met at a regional insurance convention in Indianapolis, spent the entire networking banquet hiding in the hotel bar, and have been inseparable since. He lives in a suburb about 20 minutes south, and he picks up the phone exactly the same way he always has. Immediately, no ceremony. "Hey," he said. "I need to tell you something," I said. There was a pause. Dennis has an uncanny talent for reading tone. "Okay," he said, his voice lowering. "You sound like you drove somewhere you shouldn't have." I laid it all out. The card, the apartment, the man, the laugh. When I finished, there was a heavy silence. "Stuart," he said, "do you want me to come over?" "Not yet." "Okay," he said. "Here is what you do not do. You do not confront her tonight. You do not confront her tomorrow. You call a top-tier family law attorney before you say a single word. You're in a fog right now, and you need someone with a clear head to guide you." He was right. I was a man on the edge of a breakdown, and he was the anchor. Dennis stayed on the line for another 40 minutes, talking me down, telling me a mundane story about a fence dispute he was dealing with at his own property. It had absolutely no relevance, but that's Dennis's gift. He knows when you need a distraction more than advice. The next morning, I was in the office of Diane Kettrick, a powerhouse divorce attorney known for being as precise as a surgeon. She had the calm energy of a woman who had heard every version of heartbreak and was never surprised. She told me to behave normally, to stay the course, and to pull the GPS history from the SUV. I had set up the car's tracking app 2 years earlier when we were worried about car theft, and Lydia had completely forgotten about it. It turned out to be the smoking gun. 41 separate Tuesday trips to that address over the last 11 months. Diane looked at the export I sent over and nodded, a look of professional satisfaction on her face. "This is excellent documentation," she said. I went home every night. I ate dinner with Lydia. We watched news, we talked about her dental office patients, and I listened while my soul was screaming. Diane had told me to give it 4 weeks to build the leverage, and I gave her every second of it. If you've made it this far, please hit that subscribe button. It's free for you, but it's the fuel that keeps this channel running. We truly appreciate the support. The conversation finally happened on a Sunday in April. Diane had advised me to do it at home, calmly, with the legal paperwork already filed and served. She didn't know the divorce petition was already sitting on the docket. She was in the kitchen brewing tea when I walked in, sat at the island, and called her name. She turned around. I placed the appointment card, the one from the glove box, right, on the counter. She stared at it. I told her I'd been to Lakeshore Drive. I told her I'd seen her with him. I told her about the 41 trips. She sat down, her face pale. She said, "Stuart." "I'm not doing this with a raised voice," I said, keeping my hands flat on the table to stop them from shaking. "The divorce petition is already filed. You need to call a lawyer." She started to cry. She spoke about feeling invisible, about being disconnected, about the classic justifications people use when they decide to burn their own houses down. I listened, not because I cared about the excuses, but because Diane told me listening wasn't an admission of anything. "I believe you feel that way," I said. "But that doesn't change the facts." I stayed in the house for 3 weeks while the Lawyers tore the estate apart. The GPS data was the trump card. It painted a clear picture of deception, and the court record reflected that. The settlement ended up being as fair as the law allowed. I kept the house and secured a favorable split of the assets we'd built over nearly 2 decades. When it was all settled, Dennis drove up that weekend with a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store and a decent bottle of Cabernet. We sat on the back deck. It was May, and the Chicago suburbs smelled like freshly cut grass and early spring. We ate the chicken with our hands because I'd packed away all the plates. We drank the wine from coffee mugs. "How are you, really?" Dennis asked. I thought about it. I looked out over the yard. Like a man who spent 19 years.